We have Mr. Kailash Nath Adhikari, MD Governance now. He shall be moderating the fireside chat. Over to you, Mr. Adhikari.
Thank you so much, Pragya. And firstly, welcome Ms. Mahima Kaul, Director Public Policy, Twitter India, for a fireside chat. Thank you so much for joining on our virtual summit today on technological innovations on disaster management by Governance Now. Let me first give a brief introduction to our audience of Ms. Kaul. Ms. Mahima Kaul spearheads the public policy for Twitter in India and South Asia. She is responsible for managing and leading Twitter's public policy strategy, working closely with governments and policymakers, as well as non-government organizations, including all your industry bodies, regulators, academia, to foster understanding and support for Twitter. She also forefronts Twitter's engagement with civil society to leverage Twitter for citizen-centric initiatives, including during disasters and crises. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us. And since the theme of today's session is about advancement in technologies and how it can be best used in order to mitigate any disaster and risk, my first question to you is that how much of a role do you think that today's internet and technology can actually play in two things? One is preempting and also preparing for disaster situations.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to talk about such an important subject with you today. So the first thing I would say is like how important is technology, right? Like, I mean, you just have to look around you and see that everybody has their phone in their hands all the time. And I think informal numbers tell us that we are checking our phones up to, I think, 180 times a day. Like your hand just goes, you just start unblocking. You don't really realize. So people who are connected
Absolutely.
to technology and have these kind of mobile handsets, I mean, I do appreciate not everybody does have data and not everybody has phones, but for those who do have it, it is something which has now become an extension of their arm. And we are constantly giving inputs into our phone to family, through social media, through messaging, which we don't even realize. Like that's our first point of contact. I mean, we see on Twitter today that people are tweeting about an earthquake even while the earthquake is going on. You know, they haven't even assessed for themselves, is this big enough for me to run out of the house? But they know that they want to tell people about it first. So I think like we're in an unprecedented era right now where people themselves are very connected to technology and we can use our technology to get some positive momentum going and keep them safe. So it's not just about social media. There are many different kinds of sensors that can be put into place in different areas which are earthquake prone, flooding prone, you know, just so that like that movement of the earth or like the water levels rising can tip off a sensor that can give the control room a message. Equally, if you have any idea that there might be early warning signs, I'm sure as other panelists have probably, you know, more sophisticated design systems, you can actually push out messages to people saying that this is what we're reading. Please be cautious. You know, please keep an eye out for updates. So I think that circle of technology can be used really well. And I think part of what India has been doing in terms of disaster preparedness is to see how best can we integrate technology into it. Now, just speaking from a social media perspective, this is where you can really reach out to a mass audience. You know, you can let them know, you can let the public know, you can let the media know so that they know what stories to carry, and you can actually have an authentic channel of information going down depending on what app you're using and who your audience is.
True, true. So we do understand the kind of role that technology today can play. And today, like now, you know, while we are in a lockdown state, we are at homes and we are only connected through this technology, the interconnected world that we say. So my next question to you, ma'am, is that we spoke about social media. You told about the importance of social media. So how, in various ways, can social media, including Twitter in particular, can effectively be used by government agencies as well as citizens, considering the fact that we are in a COVID-19 situation? So any examples that you can share with us of people, authorities who have been using and leveraging the platform Twitter naturally to mitigate any kind of risk and in order to save the lives of billions of people?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when you look at social media, right, and you have to look at each platform and you have to look at the strength of the platform, because you tell yourself that I will use each platform and each social media app differently. If you go into your own phone, you'll find that you have different uses, right? So Twitter in particular is an open platform, right? It's a one-to-many platform. Very few people actually go on Twitter to really have a private profile. Like you're actually trying to talk to your audience, you're trying to grow your audience, you're trying to talk to the public. What we've seen over here in India, I mean, across the world, but specifically in India as well, is over the years, we've seen a lot of government agencies. I mean, not just like government officials and political officials like your chief ministers and the prime minister himself and, you know, those offices, but also like state disaster management authorities, DMs who have Twitter accounts. We've seen them use Twitter for its strengths really well during crises. So I'll give you like a couple of examples. Like you had the Kerala floods recently, right? straight
Yes.
from the CM's office down to, to bureaucrats and also the state disaster management response authorities. They had all set up Twitter handles to be able to give out timely information to the press. And the press came to understand that if you're looking for an authentic source or you're looking for something which is up to date and absolutely correct, this is the place to go. So, it mitigates the need. You don't even need to have like physical press conferences through the day. You can have that one big press conference, but you can constantly keep sending updates. And if there is misinformation that comes up during the day, it's very easy to then just quote tweet it. And you can say, this is not actually correct. This is what the truth of the matter is. And then you can do a recap at the end of the day. So I think Twitter used as, a press release or a press conference, without any lead time to actually organize an event like that is really good. I think for journalists, it's like a quick source. You can like pick up what's happening on Twitter. When it comes to citizens, I think citizens have also understood the value of a platform like Twitter. You'll use a private chain to maybe keep in touch with their family, find out what's going on. But we have seen time and time again, whether it's in Kerala, whether it's in Kashmir, whether it's in the Northeast, if you're trying to reach a public authority, chances are that you're going to tweet to them and you're going to be tagging somebody and you're going to be saying, hey, I heard about this situation, or this family is stuck there, or they're trying to get through this public number. And what you're doing is you're not just using the open nature, but there's a different facet to Twitter, which is the transparent nature. Once it's out there, right, somebody will pick up on it and somebody will actually whether it's going to be the agency themselves or do-gooder citizens who are there. We've seen this happen with fundraising. You and I may not know somebody in the Northeast affected by floods. So we may not have an active role in rescue, but we might be looking at the images coming in. We might be looking at images by people on the ground, and we might say, hey, listen, I want to do something about it. So you can use Twitter and social media to be part of fundraising, to donate money, to tell others that you've done this. So I think the possibilities are endless, but the most important thing is look at the platform, look at the qualities of the platform, what is the strength of the platform, and then use it for that. And I think that's when you gain the maximum. So in Twitter's case, it's open, it's transparent, it's real time, it's distributed, and the urgency of the situation can be heightened by the fact that it's picking up on Twitter. It's becoming a trend. People are talking about it, and then suddenly people say Twitter is talking about it, as if Twitter is a real person, but the people on Twitter are talking about it.
No, but that's the beauty of it. I mean, that's actually the beauty of it. And an important point that you raised, that how citizens as well as governments use is that the best advantage, which I feel, is of real-time information. As if there's any confusion, and instantly it can be addressed to. So that makes me move on to my next question. Whereas besides citizen using your service, and we talked about how agencies can actually use the service, has Twitter as an organization also proactively taken any measures to help people communicate better in such crisis situation times? We can talk of how particularly today we are living also in a particular situation of COVID-19 or other crisis situations that we have seen. How Twitter as an organization has taken measures so as to proactively communicate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll put this in like 2-3 buckets, just so that I can structure the answer for people who are interested in this. The first is, as a app, like as a product, you want to keep making sure that you are updating with features that are actually useful to people, right? So for example, like when we had 140 characters, we found that in certain languages, 140 was great because people were able to put in 3-4 sentences in 140. But in certain languages like German and, it was like half a sentence, right? So we realized the need to increase the number of characters. Now, if you look also at Twitter, you can see that there are other things where you can quote tweet and you can add context. We recently experimented with actually being able to do voice tweets. So you can actually do a tweet, which is actually an audio note. You're able to bookmark tweets. You're able to make lists on Twitter more easily. This is a great way to organize, especially during a disaster, because what happens is that even Twitter India, the handle, but also other state handles, will actually tweet out a list to say that, listen, you might be following hundreds of people on Twitter, or you might be following 10 people on Twitter. But if you're paying attention to this particular crisis, just follow this list. And it's almost like a timeline within the timeline, and you can get exclusive tweets to do with this crisis. So you can build a list for yourself, or you can follow a list that somebody else has built for you. We have direct messaging now. We never used to have a feature to be able to search in direct messages, which seems almost crazy at this point, right? But there's so many different updates that we come up with just to make it easier for a user to be able to use Twitter. And we see what happens in crises to be able to, give you the kind of features that fast moving in a crisis. What do you do? The other part of it is that we also learn from crisis to crisis. So when I joined Twitter about 5 years ago, there was a lot of organic use of Twitter during crises, but there was no program which really put together best practices, right? In the sense, how do you do it? And I'll give you one small example so you'll understand what I mean. Like, say, for example, it's flooding season, okay? And you say now in Assam there are floods going on, and people start using the hashtag Assam floods. That's not a good best practice. You should use Assam floods 2020, because what happens is that when someone clicks on the hashtag, they might find tweets from 3 years ago because you're only using Assam floods, and they may not be actually looking at the latest tweet unless they're really paying attention to the date stamp and those things. So, over time, we've kind of figured out that, okay, you know what? You must use the correct hashtag. You should try and put in the dates in the hashtag so that people know that's relevant information. You might want to tag certain partners. You want to use, you want to make sure that you write verified. If you're putting out numbers saying this is a rescue number, as somebody who's an agency or even a person trying to help out, make sure you verify the information before you put it out. So I think there's certain best practices that we've developed along the way. We've done workshops, with nonprofits. We've done workshops with fundraising NGOs. We've done workshops with like NDMA and NDRF, and we've learned from them as well as we've seen them use. So I think over time the product has evolved, but our own understanding of Twitter's strength during best practices. And I'll tell you one last thing. We have accessibility features, on Twitter, which is something that is used for people who are visually challenged, or, like those kind of features that exist that are amazing during disasters. And I think in India, we haven't leveraged those enough. But if you put on some of those and you get like a closed captioning and you are able to use those are so good during a disaster, because you may not have the bandwidth and you may not be able to, use your video the way you normally do. But those kind of features can really come and help citizens. So we've developed these training modules. We're happy for anyone who's watching this who wants to reach out to us and say, hey, we would love a training to use Twitter better. Our team is more than happy to do that.
That's really good and fantastic to know that how, proactively not only the organization is working towards it, but also how conducive it is for the agencies as well as for the government to use it, as well as for the citizens. Now that brings me to my last question. Like you said earlier about the fact that there can be a lot of unverified information as well, floating around, and Twitter as an social media app or other social media apps also in large can help disseminate real-time information and clear the air about it. So considering the fact that there can also be a lot of unverified information floating on social media amid disasters, which is really my question here. What would be your guidance or advice to the general public at large as to how they should use some platform like Twitter, which has a massive scale and which has the capacity to influence that, how we can actually mitigate the risk which is caused due to unverified information during these times?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, this is a big problem facing us, like, on TV, frankly, online, offline, which is like, anytime there's any kind of emergency crisis situation, there are rumors that follow, and there is, and sometimes it's not even on purpose. Like, people think they know something about a situation, they update, oh my God, this is happening over there, and you realize it's not. Or someone, for each person who willfully puts out a misleading picture, there will be people who, accidentally share it. So these things happen on social media from both sides. Now, what you have to do is, again, like I go back to the strength of the platform. I think one of the things that we've learned over the years is that you can actually use Twitter because it has such an open nature, and it's so easy to call out misinformation when you see it. It's so easy for people to be able to tag authorities. We see that all the time. It's so easy for people to actually quote tweet and add context to, update the record for media to pick up. I think Twitter's strengths lie in actually many of the product features that allow people to add this kind of context. If you look at fact checking and the way we understand fact checking today, I think the strength of the fact checkers has actually been solidified on Twitter, because Twitter is where you saw fact checkers actually, quote tweet and say, no, this is incorrect. And we all learned actually what is fact checking and how can it be done. If you go today, everybody in India, if you go to your Explore tab right now, you'll see that in one of the top sort of options that come up, it says latest fact checks around COVID, and just go. It's actually there on your Explore tab. And if you click that, we have actually got an interesting partnership with fact checkers, which are like, ICFN certified fact checkers, where their fact checks around COVID misinformation is actually populating on a dedicated feed. So this is where, using lists, making sure that you are going into like, you're first checking with the authorities that matter. you tweet the authorities. For example, the government came up with a project called Twitter Seva for COVID. So the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare actually put it up. And it is a dedicated handle that answers questions 24/7. They have a team of 6-7 people who actually manage, and they're using a backend software to take questions at scale. But what you can do is that you can basically tweet at them, right? COVID Seva India. And you can say that, like, this is happening to me. This is what I understand about coronavirus. Like, what is the correct information? Where can I go for this? And they will actually answer you directly. So there are so many amazing handles and features that are being used to actually help verify the information. I think as long as humans exist, there will be always some form of rumors and misinformation. What we can do is recognize the patterns, try and give product updates, and allow people to take charge of their own timeline and take charge of the information. And the way to drown out misinformation at the core of it is more authentic information. So what we do is when we talk to people, whether they're journalists, they're government bodies, NGOs working on the ground, we say you just make sure that you are amplifying correct information. You're amplifying the right authorities. That is the information that will rise to the top, and the misinformation all will just stay somewhere in the corner and people will not access it. So to a large extent, I think if we better ourselves, the way we use social media, we can then really leverage the power of the platform. And so we're hoping with our updates and also with people understanding more how to use it, it can be a much healthier experience for everyone.
True. So I believe that it's a two-way experience at the end of the day.
Yes.
I mean, naturally, the platform does its best in terms of providing a good platform to spread information, and the onus also lies upon the user as to how he very judiciously uses the platforms when we talk about in such times. With that, Ms. Kaul, thank you so much for joining us on this fireside chat. It was lovely and a pleasure having you, and thank you so much for sharing your views regarding not only your organization views, but also other views regarding how technology can be used best to mitigate any kind of disasters. Thank you so much, Ms. Kaul, for joining us once again. And over to you, Pragya.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Adhikari. Thank you, Mahima, for joining us and sharing a lot of information about social media and critical communication.